All right, hey, I just wanted to check in because I finished another book, The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn by Mark Twain. Now, this is a book I feel like I remember, I must have just owned like a Tom Sawyer and Huckleberry Finn book or something when I was a kid, because I definitely never read it. I thought I had when I was a kid, but I definitely didn't. But holy God, is this a good book. And it makes sense. It makes sense. It's a classic, right? It's Mark Twain. But I didn't expect to like it as much as I did. If you don't know, Huckleberry Finn is about I think he's in his mid-teens. I don't know if it says, it might say. He's a kid who lives with a widow. His mom is gone. His dad's fucked off somewhere. He doesn't really have a whole lot of discipline. He kind of gets to go do what he wants. He hangs out with Tom Sawyer, and they have a little play gang that's pretty funny. It reminds me of when I was a kid, of meeting up with my friends and acting like we were shit we weren't, you know. It's fun. And that's what they were doing, and eventually he gets home, and his dickhead douchebag drunk dad is sitting in his room, and he's like, "Oh, you think you're better than me? You think you're better than me? Prove to me that you're better than me," pretty much, and makes him like read for a while. And he's like, "Oh, you really can read. Give me your money." And fucking robs him for his fucking, so that he can go get some beer. He's a bad dude, and eventually he ends up taking him out into the woods to live out in this fucking cabin where he's just getting drunk and abusing him the whole time. Not a good situation for Huckleberry Finn, so he decides he's gonna run away, and he comes up with the plan of staging his own murders. So he kills this pig, and he drags it out from the cabin out into the river, throws it in the river, whatever, and makes it look like he was killed, and takes a bunch of the belongings all throughout the house and just wipes them out, and makes it look like it was also a staged robbery. And he goes ahead and runs away to an island across the way that he knows nobody really is ever on, so he runs away from home. While he's on this island, he ends up meeting a black slave named Jim, who actually happened to work for the lady that he was living with, and he ran away because she had promised him that she wouldn't sell him, and he overheard her talking about selling him to somewhere in New Orleans for like $800 or something like that. And so he ran away because he was like, I don't want to be sold off. And they meet up on this island and get into a bunch of adventures together. At one point, Huckleberry Finn ends up hearing that they were looking at his father for the murder of him, and they end up thinking that it's Jim that murdered him. The town does anyway, and because it's a random slave who ran off, and the timing made sense, I guess. And so Huckleberry Finn hears this, and Jim and him decide to go to Cairo, so that Jim can take a train up north and be free. And throughout this whole book, Huckleberry Finn is kind of having this internal struggle on whether or not he's really doing the right thing, because he knows deep down that this is a good guy, that he's helping out, and he's helping him be a free man, but he's also been taught his whole life that he's essentially stealing somebody's property from them. And so he feels like he's also doing wrong. He has this internal turmoil throughout the whole book, and that part is really interesting to me. There ends up being a big storm, and they take this raft. Jim and Huck take this raft and end up going on this big adventure together. They end up meeting a couple other people who are like scammers, and they get kind of stuck with them for a while and get into some trouble in a couple different spots with those guys. Named the King and the Duke, by the way, because they just lied to them and said, "Oh, I was a duke, and that's what I was," and the other guy's like, "Oh, I was a king." They're asshole scammers, but they do eventually end up taking it too far by spoilers, by the way, by selling Jim because they said that he was a runaway slave, and so they sold him to what ends up being Tom Sawyer's relatives. And when Huck goes to confront them and try to figure out the situation out, tries to get a game plan together to free Jim, he goes and confronts the relatives, and they mistake him for Tom. And so they're like, "Oh, Tom, we were expecting you." And so obviously Huck has to figure out how to get Jim back, and eventually he does get the help of Tom Sawyer, who is a fucking asshole, by the way, to try to get Jim back. So it's a really good book. 4 out of 5, easy 4 out of 5 for me. I'm excited to read this again one day, actually. I do have James by Percival Everett that I'm going to be reading next. I'm excited. I'm just reading it back to back, so that's going to be really fun. But easy 4 out of 5. I really, really enjoyed it. I wish I would have read it sooner, honestly, so I highly recommend anybody to check that book out. But yeah, appreciate y'all for watching, and thanks.